Well, folks, welcome to another episode and interview of the Quarter Horse Hauler. I'm your host, Ryan Fleetwood, and today we have the great privilege of having with us Mr. Daniel Patton. And Dan Patton has been a friend of mine for years now. We've done some business back and forth in the horse world. Daniel is a family man, a horseman, a horse breeder. He's a helper of others, a creator, and you might call him a serial entrepreneur. Daniel, welcome. Thank you. Come on in here.
Thanks for having me. Love to be here.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you so much for working with us to be here and be online. We've got so many exciting things to talk about with you. First of all, though, just for the sake of our listeners who may know of you or may not, can you give us some details as to, just the version that you want to give us of your life, how you got into horses, what's brought you to the point where you're at now?
Okay. So I started in the horse industry, grew up without really any background in horses. But what I consider my hometown was Cedar City, Utah, southern Utah, and everyone I knew, my mom always had a thing about trying to get us out in the country, which I loved. And a lot of the people that I grew up around had horses. And I had the interesting, just plain luck, I guess it was, experience of getting involved with a couple of people who were very strong in the horse industry that I didn't realize to what level they were back then. One of the biggest ones, Walter Merrick, and from Three Bars and Go Man Go, really big, and he was huge in the racing industry. And then there was a fella named Ray Hall and Bryant Lay, and the three of them worked together a lot, and were kind of I'd never really seen anything like that before. I mean, I was very unknowledgeable about the horse industry as a whole, but they were all very successful independently with their horses, and they would utilize each other's resources to make each other better. So they all had stallions, they all had phenomenal mares, and they would just loan them to each other and just bounce things back and forth. And they'd cross things on other mares and see how things worked, and it was like everybody was looking out for each other, and they all helped each other sell their horses, and it was very unique. And I learned a lot about broodmares and stallions and the kind of foals that you want to raise, and conformation and disposition and form to function, a lot of stuff that I really have utilized my whole life, and that was trial by fire, and I didn't realize how amazing of an experience that was. Mm-hmm. And until I got older and really realized who Walter was and Ray and Bryant and the things that they did and impact that they made. But I never really got to show or anything, so I went to a professional horse training school called Meredith Manor that doesn't exist anymore in Waverly, West Virginia, and that actually led me into reproduction. They did repro courses through Ohio State, which is now in my background, or now in my backyard, I should say, just down the road from us. And I realized that I had a real passion for reproduction and genetics and those types of things. And I was pretty young when that happened. I went to Meredith Manor when I was 15, and was homeschooled, so I was able to do a lot of things that were fairly unique. I had always kind of kept horses in my life, and even though it wasn't something that was natural to be around. For me, I got really involved with fighting for a long time. Went to the Olympics and in Taekwondo, outside of the horses, and did that for a long time. But I've always, been involved with horses. Started showing a little bit. Was really involved more with like reining, cutting, cow horse. But on the West Coast, you kind of have to show in everything. Whereas, a lot of places there's people specializing more. On the West Coast, it seemed like we had to do Western pleasure, halter, whatever you could get your horse to do, because you weren't. If you're going to be hauling a long ways to a show, and you had to try and get the most out of it that you possibly could. So, for me, it was a really neat experience in the horse industry. Getting to meet integral people was super important. Had always, was in love with the rugged lark lines. Always was in love with, smart Chicolina and the old like Poco Bueno lines. And so I kind of followed a lot of people that were involved with those. And, it led me to, wound up having a lot of success in business, which gave me the ability to be able to open up and show a lot more, get some really great horses, get them in the hands of great trainers, and then get involved with putting on shows and things, and putting on events.
There's so many. I have so many questions. There's so many directions to go with this conversation. The first thing that I want to say is that I recall you having told me about the philosophy of those three gentlemen that you listed who were mentors for you some years ago. And I have to say now that I'm sure glad that they had that philosophy for many reasons, but one of them being selfish, because you have that same philosophy and you have shared with me some of your horses and genetics and your knowledge over the years. And I can't tell you how much of a benefit that's been to me and how much I appreciate that. And that I think that, in the theory of continuity, there are times and will be times in the future when I do that same thing with other people. So what a great legacy to have been given just on that side of it for you. Boy, tell me then, is there any particular horse from those three guys that would be total standout for you that you remember either having met or met progeny of that made some kind of effect on you?
They were, super involved with racehorses. Obviously, was a big part of what they did, which is obviously a very different bend than where I went. But the racehorses were also very essential to a lot of other things. Like there were, at that time, a lot of racing horses were going into hunter events, into the English stuff. A lot of your fence horses and hunter saddle horses were from those legendary racing lines. And if you look at a lot of those, that's where they came from. A lot of halter horses came from that. Sure. A lot of horses that wound up becoming, supreme champions and things. And you have to be a supreme champion, you got to do the racing, right? So, that was a big deal. And so they were really big on, obviously anything 3 bars was, that had, 3 bars breeding. So I got to, they had some daughters, and that was pretty amazing. Some older daughters of 3 bars. So I got to see those and be involved with them. But my favorite that they were involved with was the Easy Jet horses, honestly. Mm-hmm. They had, Ray Hall had a son a paint son, APHA son, named EasyJet 2. And he was just incredible. He was really successful on track, had really successful offspring. They bred EasyJet to this big Tobiano mare, and it just worked really well. If I remember, he was like homozygous too, because he threw a lot. He always threw color, and or he couldn't have been homozygous. His dam was homozygous. But boy, he was pretty. He was big. He was maybe 16-1, 16-2, big bodied, really smart, great minded. And then Ray Hall had an EasyJet son named Easy Reb, and he won, I think, like $250,000, which back then was a lot in racing. And he looked just like EasyJet, and his babies were kind of hitting the storm of the roping industry, and really popular in the roping industry. And a lot of I was like, these guys knew, like, Hank Weiskamp and, all of those types of people, they were all buddies. And so, we got to see, and, the Pitzer people. And so we got to see a lot of 2-eye jack crosses with EasyJet and bringing in the Weiskamp breeding and stuff, Skipper W stuff into, which my guys didn't particularly like that too much, that particular line. But the 2-eye jack stuff really crossed well, and that was real popular with us. And so I kind of fell in love with that too because of these guys.
Sure.
But the EasyJet line, hands down, that is. That's one of the most favorite things that I got from those guys was learning that particular time.
Going back to something that you said there, I always find it interesting how in today's modern world in the horse industry there just seems to be such a disconnect between people who appreciate the modern lines but don't realize that it's really not all that much further back in terms of breeding and families of quarter horses that created today's specialized horses, that all of those are related, and that there's really very few. When you get back, all of those old horses had some effect on all the different disciplines today. So it doesn't take very long or very much study before you learn that they're all right there.
Oh yeah, I mean, you look at one of the biggest shifts in the pleasure industry was Zippo Pine Bar. And I mean, he's Poco Bueno bred, and he was a ranch horse himself. He spent a lot of time roping cows and being on a ranch, and I love the Poco Pine line and stuff. You look at a lot of the pleasure horses, where they came from. They came from those really strong cutting lines, a lot of them, and cow horse lines.
Of course. But back then, they were just horses. They were using horses.
Right.
They did a little of everything.
Exactly.
They were versatile horses. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I wish we still had some more of that versatility, in our horses. I kind of miss that.
Well,
a lot.
You're preaching to the choir when you're talking to me about versatility, because that's my whole focus for sure. Zippo Pine Bar by Zippo Pat Bar by 3 Bars, and you're right. Then Poco Bueno, Poco Pine on that bottom side, and the Poco Pine horses were just something else. Kind of hard to find much in that regard anymore. But I think a great spot to ask you, what's your idea on where the industry is today? I'm talking in how much specialization there is in the breeding versus the old versatility of the quarter horse, and where the industry's headed, what we should do about that direction, etc.
I have the opportunity now to have really good relationships with people who were really. I used to watch them in the magazines growing up, and hear about them, and have the chance to have learned from these people and talk with them. Like I get a chance to all the time now talk with Sean Flaherty, legend in reining, and talk with him about the stallions he likes, what he likes, to hear his perspective on breeding, and he's ridden so many of these horses over the years, and their moms and their babies, and to hear his perspective on them, and the little nuances and things about these horses. I try to, it used to be when we breed the things, we would actually go see them, and put hands on the horse. You could actually see them, their conformation and their disposition in front of you. And there have been so many stallions over the years that I've bred to that I still have never seen, and that's unfortunate in a lot of aspects. So it's great to be able to utilize some of these resources, like Sean and things, to he'll learn about these animals and what they were truly like and what they pass on, because you're not gonna learn about those things unless you actually talk to those horses, people who trained them and rode them, and
Yes.
So I think that we are, and I have this conversation with a lot of people. I think that we are breeding ourselves into a hole, and in a lot of aspects with the horses that we're using. We're just using the same things over and over and over. There's no hybrid vigor coming in. There's no new blood coming in, and people are terrified of trying to do something different. It used to be there was a lot more bravery, I think, in breeding years back, and than there is now. And I know that there's a lot of aspects to that. It's not just the fear of trying something different. It's the cost and expense of doing so. What if I'm wrong? What if I make a cross and then I can't sell that baby, and then losing foal out of a good mare or something like that, So there's a lot of aspects and things that come around with that, but I think people are just more inherently afraid of trying to make an outcross for a lot of the expense reasons and things, and they let that kind of cloud the understanding of what we should be doing as breeders, is trying to make the best horse that you possibly can and perpetuate the breed and strengthen the breed. And, right? That's the goal.
And you won't get any argument from me on that. I just think that in today's world that people make their breeding choices based on the marketability of that foal that they're going to receive.
Right.
And that's only being concerned with the next generation, not
right.
2 and 3 and 5 and 10 generations down the road. So,
right.
There's a big difference, I think, between the way that the majority of decisions are made by people breeding horses today as opposed to breeders of old.
Oh, yeah. I find myself constantly kind of pigeonholing my breeding program a bit, and focusing more on the marketability, sellability of the foals that are going to hit the ground next year versus what I'm trying to do for the long term. So what I have done to kind of curb that in myself is every year I make at least one, if not two, breeding choices that would be looked at and deemed crazy by a lot of folks. Very different things. Like, for instance, this year, probably my most unique one was our old rugged Lark's son, Lark's One for the Money. I bred him because he's passed, but we have a bunch of frozen. So I took an incredible Mecum Blue daughter that I have, Sky Blue, out of a Smart Lilina, and I did that cross. Crossing he was 16-1, gorgeous hunter horse, but he had amazing conformation and a disposition that would have done really well in reining. He was a little bigger than what your typical reining horse is, but the Rugged Larks, Rugged Lark overspun once, and Carol Harris always said if he wouldn't have overspun, he'd have won the futurity. And what would have happened had that happened? Mm-hmm. Had to his breeding,
right.
would he have been pigeonholed?
Yeah.
And would he have just been breeding reining horses and been amazing sire reining horses? So we know that there was a lot of potential there. So I look back at the old lines to bring into the new, and we got this crazy nice blue filly that I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with her. What direction that we're going to put her in. We're going to keep her in our program. She will eventually be a brood mare. She's absolutely stunning in every way, great-minded, things that I hoped, everything that I hoped for, she's all of that and more. Mm-hmm. And you never really know what you're going to get, when you make these outcrosses. But, I don't look at her as being something that is going to go out and absolutely kill it in any particular discipline. She may be a crazy good show horse, but I think her potential impact on breeding down the road, her offspring, her grandbabies, and getting those guys out there, and different lines, different crosses, again, strengthening the hybrid vigor of our horses. We're pigeonholing ourselves with breeding into, half a dozen lines, just used over and over and over and over and over again. And everybody keeps talking about outcross stallions and, bringing in different mares. And some people try it and it doesn't work, and then they don't try again.
Yeah.
And, you got to keep trying. You got to keep... And that's, I'm a product guy. I've made products for most of my career, and most of them fail. Mm-hmm. But you got to keep trying,
right.
So I'm used to working on something for a long time, and I don't mind beating my head against a wall. and eventually you're going to get to a point where you're going to figure something out, and you're going to have that aha moment, and it's going to work. And I think I'm getting there. Mm-hmm. I'm hopeful. Anyway,
I know I for one am super excited about what you're doing and some of those crosses that you're making, and as I had a huge amount of admiration for your Lark's One for the Money horse, and some of the type of stuff that he has sired, and I think you're on the right track. I think you keep going towards some of that stuff, making decisions based more on the desirable characteristics and the consistent characteristics of not only the sire and dam, but knowing their background as well, and
right.
what all those consistent traits are, and knowing how to look at a mare objectively to determine what it is that she could use to better herself in her production. And then finding a stallion who fills those traits, not necessarily just looking within, if that mare comes from whatever, a known reining family or a known hunter under saddle family, only looking at horses that also come from a known family for that discipline. We can't do that.
Right.
Perhaps, those high end or top end, real competitive type programs, that's all that they want to do and what they want to look at. And I understand why completely. Daniel, you know that I have long admired your Larks Won for the Money horse and the rugged Lark lines and all of the great characteristics that I feel like that particular line of horses brings to our Western working horse type of families of horses, if you will. And there's just so many great things that I'm sure exist in that filly that you got, and most of the stuff that's sired by your Larks Won for the Money horse. I know that I have one of yours, a daughter of his here, who brings us great things in height and reach and stride and length of neck and wither and just overall class that she brings to some of these shorter, stockier type of cow horse stallions that I have. So I think you're on the right track and you're going the right direction. And I know that if there's anybody who can do it, it's probably you, because you've done such things before. So
I appreciate it.
I have to ask, with your, well-rounded past, you started with race horses, and I know you've had involvement with English type events, and now you and your lovely wife have this wonderful versatile stallion in Smoke and Custom Chrome, and you've got Frozen Seaman on Larks Won for the Money, and you're breeding to horses like a Vintage Smoke and Shining Spark and so many others. How today do you sit down and make breeding decisions?
I start, I'm constantly working on it. I'm constantly changing things up. I'm constantly challenging myself to think outside the box. I listen to people. I don't, until I buy breedings, from outside stallions, I have not committed. And a lot of people ask me, like, what are you doing next year? I'm like, well, I think I'm going to do these things. That could change. I'm usually pretty confident. I will look at the mares that I have and try and figure out the majority of what I get. I try to focus on marketability, obviously. Horses that can sell pretty quick. Like you, I've been really fortunate that the vast majority of my babies are sold as babies. They're sold as weanlings, or and I've sold a number in utero, which is absolutely amazing. It's bit me in the butt a couple times where sold them in utero, and those babies were just knock it out of the park. And I knew they were going to be good, but it was just like, oh wow!
And you end up trying to buy them back.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of them were like, damn, I got to make that cross again,
Yeah.
But which is always good, and I love that for the people who buy from me. My customers, I love that they're getting those, and I got a lot of repeat customers, which is great. But I look at a lot of the breed to a good number of horses that are fairly popular now, and whether that be cow horse, reining. Some cutters I'm looking at bringing in as well. I like to look at a lot of older lines and horses that are deceased and bring those guys back into in select ways, like Shining Spark, for instance. He hadn't been gone all that long, but I've got a frozen embryo. The play gun that we're going to try and put in a recip this next year. I've got mares that I'm probably going to be breeding to, Hollywood Dunnet, Smart Chickalina. I'm probably going to I may try for actually a Smart Littlina. We have, Pepto Boonesball still out there. We have, Pepto coming this next year in 25. And I think I've got at least one more frozen embryo by him. Bringing in, we have our lark. We have a lot of lark semen. I've actually been able to wrangle up. There was an old son of Two-Eyed Jack that years and years ago that I was involved with, named Sir Beatty Jack. He was a 76, 77 stallion by Two-Eyed Jack out of a hired hen cardinal mare on the bottom side. Mm-hmm. So he was born on the King Ranch. He was King Ranch branded. And he was absolutely dynamic in every way. And he's one of those horses that just never got the mares that he deserved to get. I found he kind of fell through the cracks a bit, and I found the lady who had owned him last and was able to actually wrangle up a dose of frozen. Oh. So I'm keeping that. I've got good friends, the Aaron Ranch, who they have semen on like Duel's Blue Boone, and they have a great son of Blue Valentine. Mm-hmm. That I absolutely love. That he was where you see a lot of the Hancock bred horses, the Blue Valentine horses. They overbreed them. So many people think that if you got a little bit of something, a lot of it could be great, and sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, and it's been very popular and it's worked in some ways really good for certain things, obviously, but their old stallion, Leo Hancock Hayes, that they owned, he was one who was not bred that way. He was by Blue Valentine out of a Leo mare. His babies are incredible, and we're very, very versatile. And they have a bunch of frozen on him, which is pretty cool. I mean, you're going back, old, when you start pulling those kinds of lines in, and like they bred him to the all-time leading cow horse mare that they have, Shiny Tari. And they have a gorgeous blue roan young stallion that they're just starting to stand now. That is by Leo Hancock Hayes, so grandson of Blue Valentine out of Shiny Tari, and I love the things that they're doing too. They're one of my good friends, and a lot of people think they're kind of crazy for the breeding decisions and things that they made, but it's working. It may not, and the interesting thing about it is some people get twisted. They expect things to work now. When it comes to like show horse stuff, you make a radical different change in breeding. You breed a son of Blue Valentine to the best cow horse producing mare ever. That resulting foal might not be a great cow horse, like show horse. But what that horse can do potentially for breeding of the cow horses and breeding of cutters, and it is powerful. Mm-hmm. And you're bringing back those dynamic bloodlines that had crazy good feet, like, Coke cans for cannon bones, and, right. They just don't break. You could ride them into their 20s and show them at the NFR, and those horses don't break.
Yeah, it's certainly.
When we're running into show horses that, 2 and 3 year olds are crippled, have bad feet and, can barely make it around the arena without, soundness problems. We need to bring some of those things back in.
Yeah.
Those really strong horses.
it's certainly thinking outside of the box and doing something different, having the bravery and the mental fortitude, if you will, to do something different than what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that you're doing some of the same thing. I am super excited about the fact that you and I have made a deal in principle to for us to get a vintage smoke sired foal out of an old mare that we've both had something to do with the last few years, and her name is Lark Shorty Lena. And she is a daughter of Rugged Lark out of a daughter of Shorty Lena, and one of the darn prettiest and sweetest mares that I've ever known. And so we're super excited for that baby to come next year.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah. Oh, of course, yeah. That's going to be a wonderful one. I'm super excited.
Yeah.
Super excited to see it.
It is. Daniel.
Hopefully homozygous black.
Yeah. Absolutely. Fingers are crossed, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me, what is your involvement with and view of the AQHA today?
So, involvement with, I've in the past, I was on a lot of committees with AQHA for about 13 years. 11 years on the marketing and membership committee, and then 2 years on the show committee. Specifically, I was more focused at that time on the show committee and in the English side. We were really involved with dressage and hunters and things at that point. So I had about 13 years on committees with AQHA. I went through the very first, I think they call it AQHA leadership program for bringing in young, outside the box thinking, people to come in and learn how to get into leadership positions within AQHA, how that worked.
That's great.
So, it was pretty cool. The year that I went through, Scoop Vessels, who had Dash for Cash, First Down Dash, the racehorse guy, he was the president that year when I went through, and that was pretty cool. Him and his wife invited us to Reducer Downs to watch the All-American Futurity, like from the inside of the racetrack. It was pretty cool. We got to watch that. That was a lot of fun. But working with AQHA has always been a dream of mine. Growing up, they were the standard. I just watched Carol Rose in her acceptance speech with it. She just got Shining Spark was just inducted into the Hall of Fame, and she was talking about how things have changed so much within AQHA, but how that has always been the standard for her. That was what, winning an AQHA World Championship, having a horse that wins an AQHA World Championship or a Reserve World Championship, and just having the opportunity to go show at the World Show is such a big deal, and it means so much to a lot of us. And in the last 10 or so years, I've been sad to see some things happen within the association that I'm not really sure how to rectify it, but it isn't the same. It's not the same association, same group that I had always stood behind, and although I still give them I would still give them 100% of my effort. If they called me up, if anybody over there ever called me up and said, "Hey, we'd love your help or opinions on things," I would be there in a second. Would jump in and give 100%. My family, myself, we are really big advocates of showing in AQHA and the breed shows. I've had a lot of people that have told me, "Why don't you focus more on showing in NRHA or, in NRCHA, NCHA, NSBA, all of these different groups, because AQHA is dying. I don't see it that way. And even if there are aspects to that are true, I think that a correction can be made, and I think that that the association is too important to all of us who are involved, to not put the effort in and have the fortitude to stay behind them and believe in them, and until the very end, if there is one, which I hope there isn't. I think that that they have some real big challenges that they have to face, and they have to figure out how to do that. And I don't know. I love them. And I've definitely had some challenges. I'm not always the easiest person to get along with in some respects, because I speak my mind, and if I see something that I don't like, I'll speak about it, and I think that that's a good and a bad thing in a lot of aspects, and it's been kind of a double-edged sword for me with AQHA personally, but it doesn't change the respect and love that I have for them, without a doubt.
Yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair. As you know, I feel like, at least for myself, I would agree with you that there are some major challenges coming down the pike towards the association, not the least of which is deciding how much emphasis to put onto the sport horse side versus the breed registry side, or which kind of street to follow. And of course, I'm a fairly well-known advocate that the association needs to really follow its breed registry side, because at the foundation of it, that's what it is. And I think that there's a lot of things that could be done differently to help members, and especially those making breeding decisions that will affect the future of the association. I think that we could give them a lot more help, education, outreach, etc. And that isn't to say that I think that there should be no sport horse side to the association, but the beginning of the listing of other associations that are competitive associations that you gave is just the beginning. There's so many out there who that's what they're dedicated to. And so in turn, I think that we as an association need to be dedicated to it as a breed registry, because it is the only one out there. And the one commonality between all people, as far as I can see, who have quarter horses, is that registration paper on the horses.
Right.
Tell me now your relatively recent partnership and moving forward with the APHA and the Ranch Horse Triple Crown, and what you're doing with that new association you've got off the ground there, and how that's going.
So got involved with ranch horses some years back. I don't probably 8 years ago, maybe now, maybe more, with Clark Bradley at University of Findlay. And Clark had always been kind of a hero of mine. One of those guys that I watched show, and he was, what I loved about him was his versatility. I mean, he wanted everything, and I don't think there's really anything he didn't show in and do well. And his assistants and students are still, leading trainers, and he made such an impact on so many people's lives. And my daughter Emily had the unbelievable opportunity to be his last his last student, and and spend years working with him. And we went up there every week for years and took lessons with him. And Clark was a man of few words, but when he did speak, it was very profound. And he and I had amazing conversations because he loved breeding and he loved the old school lines. And Clark was absolutely amazing to talk to because he rode Poco Bueno offspring. He saw Poco Bueno show, and these horses that were absolutely influential. Doc Barr and Poco Tibio and just incredible horses. We'd sit and talk, and he's telling me these stories about them, and it was just remarkable. I just sit there and just be in awe of the things that he said, but we had some really great things, and I would always run through breeding decisions and things with him. But ranch was something that both of us saw as a way to grow the association with new people, bring new people in, and to utilize our horses just better as a whole. Not all of these horses that have been pigeonholed so much into reining or cow horse or cutting or roping or whatever, that there is something that they could all do that honestly they could do well in. Clark was one that I watched him train and show multiple pleasure horses, Western pleasure horses, Western riding horses that were phenomenal movers, but they didn't have the ability to go slow like they needed to do for Western riding, Western pleasure. And he would get those horses spun up and in ranch and get them around cows. He'd rope off of them. He'd do all sorts of things, and then he'd go in and win with them in the ranch. And he said to me, the worst thing we can ever do in ranch is to make it so that we're just like reining or cow horse or any of these where it's just these certain horses that have the ability to go in and win and show and win. We need to keep it open for all of these different horses to be able to have the ability to come in and show. And so that was something that was really important to him, and it became very, very important to me. And we started realizing that there was a tremendous need for someone to step up and kind of oversee things a little bit more on the show side of ranch, and likewise to bring in money into the show pen with ranch. It still is the fastest growing event in the world, as far as I know, as far as in the horses that we deal with. And the growth is just exponential, but there was no money in it. It was, you're just chasing points at shows, which was perfectly fine, and it was still growing like crazy. But we both had the belief that if we could put some money in, and not just a little bit of money, but like some serious money into this, that we could make something of it. And one of the things that I'm kind of known for is I put my money where my mouth is. And if I believe in something, I'm happy just doing it myself. And usually if I figure things out well enough, I go in and do something, and in most cases it works. I've been wrong a few times over the years and made some missteps and lost some money. But in most cases, if I'm willing to put the effort in and understand everything, and then put my money in and make it happen, it works. So that's what I did with ranch. We created the International Ranch Horse Association. and I created 2 events: the Ranch Horse Triple Crown Challenge, which was an all-age event that she showed in three different events within ranch trail, ranch rail, and ranch riding. And initially we did an open and non-pro, but it was all age. And then now we have added youth into that as well. And then we created the International Ranch Horse Association Ranch Horse Futurity. So our Futurity, obviously just for 3-year-olds, that was the first of its kind. And we wanted to have a very strong financial aspect behind that. We did an open and non-pro classes, and kind of bounced it around a little bit. Initially, it was at the Futurity was held with the Tulsa Reining Classic, which was bought by the group that has the 100X shows. They have that. They bought Tulsa Reining Classic and a few other places, so it became the 100X. And we held it there, and then we moved, and in a partnership with the American Paint Horse Association, we moved this year both the Futurity and the Triple Crown, which has always been held in conjunction with the AQHA World Show. Both of our events were together there. So all the 3-year-olds were able to show there. My concern was it's a little early because it's in July, late July. My concern was that it was actually early July, that it was a little early for a Futurity. But when you're with 3-year-olds, but when you're just talking ranch is not nearly as focused as, reining or cow horse or something like that. It's a lot easier to get a ranch horse prepared for a show in July as the preeminent show for a Futurity, and it worked out beautifully. We pulled all of the trainers and riders, and they all were just unbelievably happy because they could bring all their 3-year-olds there, all their 4 and up, and show all those. And then we also, I believe last year was our first year that we did. The International Ranch Horse Association had its own world show within the AQHA World Show. So we had multiple world championships in open, non-pro, and youth, and the different events. And we did the same thing this year and expanded that a bit. The IRHA now has, we have a couple of shows internationally, which is pretty amazing. AQHA has done a absolutely phenomenal job in helping us with this and in growing it. And in fact, this is my last year being involved with the IRHA as the leader of this. I am, at the end of this year, I'm stepping down and will remain on the board of IRHA and very involved with it still, and I'll still manage this the stallion auction that we have that funds a great deal of the payout that we're able to do for these events, but I will let someone else run it. I believe Sandy Tchaikovsky with AQHA, phenomenal lady. She has amazing reputation, and everyone that I know absolutely loves her. Is kind of heading up the IRHA now, and will be heading it up in the future, and I'm super excited about that. But AQHA will, at the end of this year, will effectively own 100% of IRHA. Will become part of their group.
So I said in the introduction of you that you were a helper of others, and I think that probably could be shown in what you've done with the RHA and those events there, because really you've started that, hatched that idea, grown it up from a baby, and now given it on to someone else, all in the name of helping other people and forwarding the positivity of people having that place to show and that place to go to. And I just want to say that I admire you so much for that. What a great job.
Thank you. It's, I think that I've had a lot of great things that have happened in my life, and I've had people that have helped me, and the horses for me have been absolutely life-changing, and I can't imagine my life without horses in it. And I think that doing things, we need to sometimes look at not just doing things to line our pockets, and what it's going to bring for us. We need to do the right thing, and we need to do the best thing to help, not just to help the breed, but to help the associations, to help our friends that we show with, the friends that have these great horses, and we want to perpetuate this. We want to help the kids coming up to have something that they can show in for their whole lives, and they can bring their children into, and their grandchildren, and we want this stuff to stay. We want our horses to stay around, and these shows to stay around, and so we have to sometimes think a little bit outside of us, and so I'm perfectly fine putting my money, my resources in those types of things to help. Mm-hmm. I only need so much to live off of, and I'm perfectly happy. I don't require that much, so I'm perfectly happy with taking my resources to help if I can.
Well, it's a great thing. I think that you're doing something in service of others, and there'll be a lot of people benefit from that over the time that this continues on. Geez, Daniel, there's so many things we could talk about, but I know that you are a busy man with a lot on the go, and so I just want to ask you about your family a little bit. Tell us about your wife and daughter and what they're doing and showing, and their horse involvement, I know, is huge as well.
Yeah, so my wife Kristen had always shown in, she grew up showing dressage. That's been something that she was involved with her entire life, and she absolutely loves it. When I got involved with AQHA on the show committee, and even before I was on the show committee, was trying to get dressage approved with AQHA as an official event, and worked on that for a very long time. Lynn Palm and I and Robin DeGraff and the three of us were pretty instrumental in getting that to happen with an AQHA, and it's been interesting. And dressage, when I was initially brought into it, I was like, oh wow, this is like way outside the realm of anything that I was interested in at all. It was, horses dancing. That's what it felt like to me. And then I really started understanding the rationale behind it, that, it truly is it's the start for everything, really. It is and you look at reining, the movements and things in reining that we do, it's so similar. And, how the horse is trained and the longevity of how these horses move throughout there. Each part of each test and level within dressage is just a little bit more knowledge that horse picks up over time. And these horses are showing from, the time they're 3 or 4 years old until they're 28, 30, they just can't show anymore. And they tend to be very sound and not have the issues and things that a lot of them do. So, I watched that and the longevity of it, and it was very interesting to me. So I got involved with it, and obviously it was important to Kristen. So that was something that I really jumped in and wanted to help with. So I did that. We got her a few years back an amazing partner, Stallion Smoke and Custom Chrome that we have. And she showed him in ranch a lot, won a bunch with him. And he has now, I don't know, I'm thinking like 17 world championships.
That horse has won everything.
Reserve world championships in so many different events. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But he had quite a show record before we got him. And she's showing him really heavy in dressage. And absolutely loves it. We were just at a show close by this last weekend, and they picked up a bunch of points and did amazing. Lynn Palm was just at our place a couple of weeks ago doing a big clinic and show here.
Right.
And that was amazing. So much fun. Known her for forever.
I'll bet. Well,
and
Lynn is on my list of victims to hit for,
really?
For an interview for the podcast.
Oh, you'll love her. I love Lynn so much. She's so much fun. And my daughter Emily, of course, she kind of blows my mind a little bit. So she she started off riding in English, and went into the Western stuff really with Clark Bradley with ranch, and they got involved with reining with Sean Flaherty, and has just done amazing things. And so she shows in reining at the highest levels. She shows in ranch at the highest levels. She shows in fences still at the highest levels. And in fact, it was kind of cute at the AQHA World Show this year. I didn't get to attend. I was watching it online and listening to the announcers. She was I think there were like 130 kids that were showing in the ranch riding, the 14 to 18 ranch riding. And, they take 20 horses back to make the finals, right? And she brought 3 horses back into the finals of the ranch riding, as a 17-year-old, and she's not a professional, and she does a lot of this on her own. And she went in and qualified all 3 of them, and wound up winning globes and championships, and just did phenomenal both in the fences and in ranch this year. And we're just gearing up now for Congress here in Columbus, which is pretty amazing. That's coming up here in a couple of weeks, and we have tons of horses that are going to be shown there. And so it's the showing is crazy. We're always on the go. We're hopeful. Emily has decided finally that she actually wants to go to an equestrian school. And so we're working on that. I think we've got a target school that she really wants to go to, and we're working on. She's a senior this year, So next year she'll go to school and go to college. Got to wait for that, and yeah, it's been the show inside's been a blast, and we have some reining horses like with Sean, and I've got my first cow horse going to Sarah Dawson end of the year, which is pretty cool. One of the ones we bred, and yeah, and lots of ranch horses and stuff out there. It's pretty fun.
I have to say, when I first met Emily, she was just a child. She was a kid, and although at a distance, it's been really fun to watch her development and just how well she's done. I mean, she's obviously such a natural, and she's had so many great opportunities also, and those things together have just given her such a great start to her career as a horsewoman. I foresee her being much like a wonderful lady we were talking about a few minutes ago, Lynn Palm, somebody who everybody will know who she is and her talent and just what a great horsewoman she is. So I hope that's true for her.
Yeah, she wants to. She'd wanted to be a trainer kind of growing up, and she kind of watching a lot of the trainers. I think she sat back and was like, "That's too much for me. It's a hard life." She likes taking vacations here and there, so she will be an aggressive non-pro. I think her entire life, and she has the horse bug. It ain't ever going away. So yeah, that'll be nice.
Daniel, would you share with listeners of this podcast a pivotal life moment for yourself? And that could be positive or negative, one of those aha moments or a time when you really learned something about your life. It doesn't have to involve horses, but it may. Just something that was a big deal in your life.
So many of them. I had an opportunity. I lived in Colorado for a time, and a fella who maybe was more influential to me than just about anybody that I've been around in my life. He was a Czechoslovakian immigrant named Stan Volk, and Stan had a beautiful ranch right on the Colorado River in Delta, Colorado, and growing up, I had a lot of fears, and was scared of a lot of things, and I grew up with my mom, and she was afraid of everything, and so I kind of came by it naturally, and he noticed that in me, but he noticed that I was a very hard worker. In fact, first time he saw me grab my hand, shake my hand, and he flipped my hand over and was looking at my calluses on my hand. And he said, I want to spend more time with you. Your hands are just beat to death. And at that point, I think I was about 13. And it's like, you're a hard worker, you've got some potential. So he poured a lot of knowledge into me, and he taught me how to push through my fears, how to use fear as a gateway to better things. You're just afraid. You're afraid of something that has not happened, something that likely will not ever happen, and you're letting that paralyze you in your life. And I think that so many people let fear guide them, and they let it control their lives. The fear of so many different things, and the what ifs. What if I do this and it doesn't work? And so he really helped to teach me how to not be afraid. And I think, honestly, the experience with him, and it wasn't that long, maybe a year, but it was profound enough that I I took that and just built on it my whole life. And that is, I would credit that as the single biggest thing that has changed my life and has made me who I am, was my ability not to be scared. And it's not that I said that wrong. It's not that I'm not scared, because I'm still always scared of things. But you should have healthy fears of things. But it's the ability to be afraid and still move forward and not let it stop you, right? And that's where I think I differ from a lot of people, is that I will keep moving forward. You're not going to stop me. Nothing's going to stop me. If there's something that I want, I'm going to get it. Someone gets in my way, something gets in my way. I'm mindful about the fact that, sometimes doors shut because you're not meant to go in a certain direction. But you can't be afraid sometimes to kick in a door either. But that's probably my biggest thing for me, I would say.
And an old saying comes to my mind that I have tried to keep, pinned inside of those walls in here for a long time, and it is operate in faith instead of fear.
Yeah, that's a very good one.
I think that's what good. You're saying. I mean, that's what you learned from this man.
Oh,
and took forward with you.
Yeah. It truly did change my life in so many ways, and I have been able to help a lot of people over the years when I figured it out for myself, how to get through those things, to teach other people how to do that. Because it's not, I think our natural inclination is to be afraid of things,
yes.
and operate in that realm. But I think that when you learn how to not operate with fear controlling you, it changes everything.
And Daniel, when you say you've helped other people do that, including me, you've done that for me in the past also.
Thank you.
Not through having said it, but through your actions and how you interacted and did business with me.
Thank you.
So
I appreciate it.
That's a timely conversation for my life right now too. I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna think about it, because I do appreciate that. Yeah.
Good.
Well, sir, listen. Will you come back on again in the future so we can talk about all the things we didn't talk about?
Exactly. I'd love to. Yeah, there's a million things that we could talk about.
I sure appreciate your time and your ideas on horses and human interaction and the world at large, and that you've taken some time to spend with me and with those of us that will listen to it and pay attention to it. Thank you so much.
Oh, of course. Love you and your family, and I mean, you've become a cherished friend in your family, the horse industry has given me some of the best people that I've had in my life.
Me too.
And I'll always be thankful for that. It's a remarkable place to be involved with horses and the people that are in it. But we may have different views on things, but we share a love and a passion that just burns in us, and a lot of people don't understand that. And having those people who share that with you is pretty cool.
Amen. I couldn't say it better, and I couldn't agree with you more. Thanks, Daniel.
Good. Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening to the Quarter Horse Hauler with Ryan Fleetwood. If you'd like to hire me for an equine event as a speaker, MC, auctioneer, judge, or as a clinician for beginner or intermediate folks looking to expand their horsemanship, I'm available. You can reach me at ryan@fleetwoodfarms.com. ryan@fleetwoodfarms.com. One of my other passions is talking about breeding decisions and working to make the breed better. Whatever you need for an equine event, I might be able to help out. If you'd like to follow us on social media, please look us up on your favorite platform, streaming or podcast platform. If you'd like to support the podcast financially, you can donate at buymeacoffee.com/Ryan Fleetwood. All of our links are in the show notes. The episode was produced by me, Ryan Fleetwood, in conjunction with Starset Media. Thank you again for listening to The Quarter Horse Hauler.
Daniel, we're going to cut for a minute so I can do something about this fly that won't leave me alone.
No worries, buddy.
Of course, it's in my face all the time.
Oh, did you get him?
Yeah.
Thank you. Holy Moses, now I'm going to have to go back to it. Poor Jared's going to have to cut out my F-bomb from our...
Well, that's a nice thing. You can cut and paste things. There you go. You can
Right,
play
it's
with
not,
it.
it's not live. I don't have to say, hold on, everybody. I got to kill this fly.
I gotta kill him.